Hi, my name is Amy. Thank you very much for watching, and let's make some bad financial decisions together. So, today I want to talk about margin. Also, I would like to warn you that this is for entertainment purposes only. Absolutely no financial advice to be found here. Also, if you hear my dog, we have sheep on my farm and he is protecting them, so you might hear him bark at the bear. It is no big deal. Anyways, so um let's talk about margin, because in good times you might watch some YouTube videos that say, "Ooh, I am 100% into margin and I'm using these high income ETFs and it's great and everybody should do this." And in the bad times, you could be on Reddit and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, why would you use margin on these high risk ETFs? Like, what were you even thinking?" So I am somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's a terrible idea to use margin for these, but I do believe you need to be careful with the amount of margin you use. It also depends. Well, it depends on your risk appetite and your discipline. So, um, I don't know if it makes sense to you, but the higher the income or the yield, the more sense it makes to use margin, because your profit will be higher. Um, and so you'll be able to pay your margin off quicker. But, like, traditionally, margin has been used for speculative plays. So if you like leverage ETFs, the 3X, UPRO, TQQQ, stuff like that, you put your margin in the your margin play in the morning. Hopefully you're making 10%. Then you take your money out at the end of the day. You pay a very nominal amount of fees for using margin for the day. You go on your way. But if you are using 100% margin on UPRO and all of a sudden it decides, like, hey, I'm just going to be failing 90% and just lose 90% of my value over an hour. If you have margin and you fall below your maintenance, you'll get your call and then they'll sell all your shares, which, if it's just your money and you make a bad leveraged decision, you can wait it out. Like, they tell you, like, oh no, it's not for a long term, but like, you can just have the shares sit there and eventually there'll be a big enough bull market where you recover and you can get your money back. It might be 5 years from now, it might be 7 years from now, it might be 20 years from now, but eventually you could get your money back from the shares and not technically lose money, which is the best kind of not losing money. But if you do the call, if you get your margin call and they rip and they sell your shares for you, there's no chance of recovery. And then you have to pay the interest on top of it if they're still outstanding. So it doesn't feel good. And that's where my risk appetite for using margin and day trading, that's kind of misaligned. I would rather, and I know people will think it's silly, but for me, with Misty, like, if I already had $1,000 in Misty, which I do, I'm way past that point right now, but if I had $1,000 already in Misty and I wait until declaration date and I see that it's $1.85 per share, and I know my distribution is going to be $82, I will go ahead and buy $82 worth of shares. That way, when I get my distribution, the distribution will pay the margin I took out, and then I own those shares already. As opposed to, not doing that, buying on the ex-dividend date, and then I have to pay the margin for an entire month and then get paid. And for me, high income ETFs make more sense for margin than a lot of other investment vehicles, because I bought Misty at $30, right? But it's still paying $1.85 per share, which means that for every $1,000, well, it'll be less shares, but still, like, my margin rate for $1,000 is $5.81. And my taxes, like, when I paid $30 for, I think right now my average is 26, right? So then, my average price is $26. My distribution would be $71. My taxes are $17. But I still have a profit of $47, which is roughly half, like it's slightly more than half. It is okay, so it's like a 67% profit. That's not bad. And you know what? With your 67% profit, you don't have to reinvest it right away. You can invest it in a different ETF doing the dividend wheel, or you can just not buy back into the fund until right before the next declaration day, and then invest $55.69. And it, like, in that way, I feel like as long as you keep your margin percent that you're taking out. So, for example, let's say like you have $25,000 for margin, and you only want to take out 20%. So as long as you stay at $5,000 of margin used, you can buy whatever, and as the distributions are paid, the dividend amount that you have outstanding becomes less, and then before the declaration date you can make it be $5,000 again, and then it'll keep shrinking, or you can just let it pay itself off. But it definitely makes more sense to try to do this with Misty at 116% than it does with like something that's giving you 20%, because the difference is more. That's not going to stop me from doing it with QDTE and XDDTE, because I don't have any more of my own money to put in right now. But you can see that like JEPI only has a 7.09% yield. And so between the margin and the taxes, your profit is negative. So you're going to basically spend money to own Jeppy, which is not great. That's not really the goal. So I guess it depends on your risk appetite, but I do like margin for the high income, because with the distributions you can make your outstanding margin be less, and if you're only taking out 20 or 30% of your available margin, the entire stock market can go down 90% and you still won't get a call, so you're not really in danger of that too much. It's when you have, $25,000 worth of margin available and you use $25,000 worth of margin in these funds, there's no place for it to go. Even 60 or 70%, it's a little nerve-wracking, especially right now. We're in September, where it's not great. And to me, I'm not trying to time the market, but it looks like we're either at the start of a recession or it's just September and it just is being down because it's September. But either way, when it's down, buy more because everything is down. And then, in the bull run, that's when you can take profits. But I can't mention this enough. It's about your risk appetite, but keep a reasonable amount of margin and choose what you want to invest in, and then either use the margin or use the distributions to just straight up pay off your margin. Just don't add to it. Or just use it to for example, say I had $5,000 out of margin, but I got $1,400 of distributions from my Yieldmax ones over the month. So then I only had $3,600 of margin taken out. Before the next expiration date, I can put the $1,400 back into Yieldmax just to keep myself at $5,000. But then, the amount that you get paid every month when you reinvest, it compounds, and then you get more and you're paying more of the margin off every month, and it's nice. But I would just keep your max that you want to spend in mind for margin. And Robinhood has the feature where you can actually just set the limit and be like, I know I'm gonna spend every penny I can, so I can only borrow $5,000. And then you can't get yourself in trouble and get yourself into 60-70% territory, and then the entire market crashes. So ultimately, it is up to you whether you want to use 100% margin and then have cash off to the side to cover the margin, or just use it reasonably and responsibly. But anyway, Do you use margin, and do you think that using it on high income ETFs is a reasonable use case for it, or no? Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Bye.